By the late 1800s, the Spanish Empire was in decline. Once controlling vast territories across the Americas, Africa, and Asia, Spain now clung to its last colonies: Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. Among these, Cuba was the most restless. The island had been fighting for independence for decades, inspired by ideals of liberty and self-rule. In 1895, a new revolution broke out in Cuba against Spanish rule. Spain responded with brutal force, sending General Valeriano Weyler, nicknamed the Butcher, who placed thousands of Cuban civilians in concentration camps, leading to disease and starvation. These atrocities were widely reported by American newspapers, which used yellow journalism, sensational stories to stir emotions and sell papers. Publishers like William Randolph Hearst and Joseph Pulitzer printed headlines describing Spanish cruelty, shaping American opinion in favor of the Cuban rebels. Meanwhile, the United States had its own motives. Many Americans saw Cuba's struggle as similar to their own revolution against Britain. Others wanted to protect American investments in Cuban sugar plantations. The U.S. government, led by President William McKinley, tried diplomacy, but faced increasing pressure from the public and Congress to intervene. The situation exploded when the USS Maine, an American battleship sent to Havana Harbor to protect U.S. citizens, suddenly blew up on February 15, 1898, killing 266 sailors. Although the cause was never proven, the press immediately blamed Spain, printing the famous slogan, "Remember the Maine, to hell with Spain." The American people were furious, and war seemed inevitable. Despite his reluctance, President McKinley finally gave in to the pressure. On April 25, 1898, the United States declared war on Spain, beginning what would become known as the Spanish-American War. Congress also recognized Cuban independence, making clear that America was not fighting for conquest, at least officially. The war began not in Cuba, but thousands of miles away, in the Philippines, another Spanish colony in Asia. Commodore George Dewey, commanding the U.S. Pacific Fleet, was ordered to attack the Spanish forces in Manila Bay. At dawn, on May 1, 1898, Dewey's ships opened fire on the Spanish fleet. Within hours, all Spanish ships were destroyed, and the Americans suffered minimal losses. It was a stunning victory that signaled America's rising naval power. Meanwhile, in Cuba, U.S. forces began to mobilize. The army was poorly trained and equipped, but filled with volunteers eager for adventure and glory. Among them were the Rough Riders, a famous cavalry unit led by Theodore Roosevelt, who had resigned from his position as Assistant Secretary of the Navy to fight in the war. American troops landed in Cuba in June 1898, facing not only Spanish soldiers, but also tropical diseases like malaria and yellow fever. Despite the challenges, they pushed forward with the help of Cuban rebels who knew the terrain well. The decisive moment came at the Battle of San Juan Hill on July 1, 1898. The Rough Riders, alongside African-American regiments known as the Buffalo Soldiers, bravely charged up the hill under heavy Spanish fire. Although chaotic and bloody, the Americans captured the hill, giving them control over Santiago, the key Spanish stronghold in Cuba. 2 days later, the Spanish fleet attempted to escape Santiago Harbor, but was completely destroyed by the U.S. Navy in the Battle of Santiago de Cuba. This effectively ended Spanish resistance on the island. Spain's defeat in Cuba was soon followed by American victories in Puerto Rico and Guam, as U.S. forces expanded the conflict to all Spanish territories. While the war was short, lasting just about 4 months, it demonstrated the United States' growing military and industrial power. The American press celebrated the victories, calling it a splendid little war. However, for the soldiers on the ground, it was far from splendid. Many died not from combat, but from disease and poor sanitation. Out of roughly 3,000 American deaths, only about 400 were from battle. The rest were from illness. By August 1898, Spain realized it could no longer continue. On August 12th, both sides agreed to a ceasefire, and formal peace negotiations began in Paris. The Treaty of Paris was signed on December 10, 1898, officially ending the Spanish-American War. The treaty's terms were sweeping. Spain recognized Cuba's independence and ceded Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines to the United States. In exchange, the U.S. paid Spain $20 million for the Philippines. This marked the end of the Spanish Empire and the rise of the United States as a global power. America had now become an imperial nation with territory stretching across the Pacific and the Caribbean. While many Americans celebrated victory, others questioned the morality of controlling foreign lands. The debate over imperialism divided the nation. Figures like Mark Twain and Andrew Carnegie argued that it betrayed America's founding ideals of freedom and self-determination. In the Philippines, the story was far from over. When Filipino leader Emilio Aguinaldo realized the U.S. would not grant independence, he led a new rebellion against American rule, sparking the Philippine-American War, 1899 to 1902. This conflict was far bloodier and longer than the Spanish-American War itself. For Cuba, independence finally came in 1902, but under strict American influence. The Platt Amendment allowed the U.S. to intervene in Cuban affairs and maintain a naval base at Guantanamo Bay, a legacy that continues today. In the years that followed, the Spanish-American War reshaped world politics. It signaled the emergence of the United States as a major world power, capable of projecting force far beyond its borders. It also ushered in a new era of American foreign policy, one focused on expansion, influence, and the spread of its ideals across the globe. From the explosion of the Maine to the signing of the Treaty of Paris, the war lasted only a few months, but its consequences would echo for decades. It was the war that ended one empire and launched another.
2 videos about historical events that have happened in different countries of the world are uploaded to this channel. To know the new history of tomorrow, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and if you like the video or history you just heard, give it a like. Do you want to know about history? Thank you.